Well, it's been 5 years since the Brexit referendum, and only about 6 months into Brexit properly at this point. But things are not going well. Despite, of course, Boris, the town crier, rolling up and down the streets with his bell or shouting from Big Ben, saying that all is well. In reality, all is not well, because to really understand at the moment the effects of Brexit, you've really got to look at a local level, because you will see lots of businesses panicking, built businesses around there being a free market and a customs union where they can transport goods freely to and from the UK to mainland Europe, or have customers providing a service to them, be able to hold their data from European customers. All that is now in jeopardy. And as we've said before on this channel, the best worst case scenario for Brexit, and by the way, this does seem to be the direction that it is going in, is less exports, meaning less trade, meaning smaller economies, meaning less investment, meaning less jobs. That is the best worst case scenario. That is what we are looking at. In no way, shape or form is this going in a good direction. And at the moment, there really isn't a public appetite to reopen the referendum again, and I understand that. But like I say, Remainers aren't going anywhere, or rejoiners, shall we say, as we call ourselves. We ain't going anywhere, and trust me, one way or another, this issue will reopen itself, and the lies that the Leave campaign told have already been exposed. They were exposed all the way back in 2016. Boris Johnson exposes them every single day, almost. We saw Lord Frost in a parliamentary subcommittee where, honestly, the MPs questioning him would have got more sense talking to Frosty the Snowman than Lord Frost. But again, this is the fantasy world that they are refusing to engage in, that they are believing in with wholeheartedly. And until they actually accept the reality, then we almost cannot have a proper conversation about the impacts of Brexit. And trust me, they will hit sooner or later, because remember, the Leave campaign promised everything to everyone. And sooner or later, you've actually got to fulfill some of those promises. And that is the situation where Boris Johnson finds himself in, where some of those people are now starting to ask about cashing those checks. But of course, Boris isn't going to do that, because all that's happened, and all Brexit has really enabled it to do, is essentially move the Tory party from being still very right-wing back to being even more hard right-wing, even more right-wing than Margaret Thatcher's government were. So we are in for one heck of a ride. So before we do jump into today's article, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page, as well as one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you so much to all the people who do support the channel that way. So today's article comes from the Sussex Bylines, and the title is Burdened by Red Tape, Sussex businesses see no way out of the Brexit nightmare. The 5th anniversary of the Brexit referendum vote is fast approaching, of June the 23rd, and there is very little sign that anti-EU outrage is in much of the UK media has actually decreased, rather the opposite. But below the sound and the fury and the current focus on the Northern Ireland Protocol, it is easy to miss the steady drumbeat of bad news about the negative impact of Brexit on UK businesses, particularly on our small and medium entrepreneurs. The figures speak for themselves. In the first quarter of 2021, exports from the UK declined by 40% and imports by 29%. Some of the difficulties faced by British exporters were due to the pandemic, But, according to the British Chambers of Commerce, many are not. These are structural issues that, if they continue to go unaddressed, will lead to long-term, potentially irreversible weaknesses in the UK export sector. And its co-executive director, Hanan Essex, is quoted as saying in a CNN report in April, "For many companies, they are reliant on exporting to the EU or with suppliers on the continent, and the last few months have been a complete nightmare. It is being calculated that UK businesses will be faced with processing over 200 million extra customs declarations each year. Confronted by a tsunami of paperwork and confusing regulations and escalating transport costs, delays of essential materials and a shortage of specialist advice and support, it is no surprise that many SME owners have considered just giving up altogether or just moving lock, stock and barrel to the continent." This was certainly one of the findings from the survey of the EU Unity Lewis ran in March to discover the impact of post-Brexit trading on local businesses, and it found that 60% of those responding were considering downsizing, offshoring, or shutting down their businesses. And the majority of respondents felt that leaving the customs union and single market had made trading far more difficult or outright impossible. And many Sussex SMEs have built close ties with customers and suppliers across the channel over many years, and quotes from the survey underline the profound damage that has been done to those relationships by Brexit. To find out how individual businesses are facing post-Brexit, the Sussex Bylines has spoke to two people involved with successful export-based businesses. Paul Meller, managing director of the wonderfully named Pads for Labs Limited, and John Baxter Smith, in charge of the European sales and distribution for W.S. Wilson Corporation, a US manufacturer of small aircraft parts. Paul Muller's company is based on the small industrial estate in the shadow of the South Downs and currently employs around 5 people, making what are known as Cinderella products, used in the manufacturing of reading glasses. He is deeply concerned about the future of his business as profits are eroded by delays, confusions, and additional paperwork. The whole freight industry is an absolute bloody meltdown, he says. In the past, we would ship a pallet of goods to Frankfurt and it would cost us £109 and take about 4 to 5 days. Now, you are lucky if you can get it to someone to quote you for it, and the cost is roughly around £270. So that is an increase. Plus, then you've got the lead time to think about of now about 2 to 3 weeks. That's if things go well. And that is a big impact on any profit margins and cash flow. Each European country has a different protocol, so the paperwork has to be done differently for Germany than for Italy, Mellor explains. And when you go into the government's website to take advantage of the much advertised help, it's like going down a rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland. These aren't just inevitable teething problems. There's an increase in cost that is permanent, as is the damage to relationships with customers that have been built up over the years, Mellor responds. To go ahead with this when COVID was already causing such enormous damage to cross-channel trade was extremely reckless. At the mention of Jacob Rees-Mogg's reassurance that things will be fine in 50 years' time, Mellor snorts, "If I were to meet Rees-Mogg, I would tell him that I'd be dead in 50 years and I won't have a business in 50 weeks. As a result of this, which he is seriously considering moving his business lock, stock and barrel to mainland Europe. The big boys will set up a European subsidiary, but that level of cost is not feasible for a company doing so on operating on £1 million turnover a year. So the alternative is to move. And some countries are currently offering very attractive incentives to encourage people to relocate. Both Mellor and John Baxter Smith describe the huge level of stress caused by Brexit. Our business model was based on the customs union and single market and free flow of goods. It is unsustainable in the light of Brexit. The aircraft parts that were shipped from the US subsidiary in Northern Ireland and then to the UK and then to various subcontractors were imported on zero duty, but now there is a nightmare of duties payable in both directions, both to the UK to mainland Europe and the reverse. Every delivery has so far gone pear-shaped. And again, the individual impact on lives and businesses is all too evident, he adds. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and now only inertia is what is keeping us going. He is despondent and deeply pessimistic about the long-term survival of the UK-based businesses. Mello sums up the same sense of frustration and betrayal shared by many small business owners when faced with the consequences of Brexit. And I don't want to be competing with people halfway across the world who are paying their staff pennies compared to us. As far as I'm concerned, the EU regulations were largely positive, and I can't think of a single one that had an adverse impact on our business. And you'll get the same response. You will get the same response when you talk to like individual people who aren't mainly involved in business, or maybe like the administrative side of running businesses. They'll tell you, the EU regulations were overwhelmingly good. They were very easy to understand, and because there was like one rule for all, because we were in the single market and customs union, then it was easy to basically ship to these 27 other nations very simply. Whereas you go to anyone else potentially and they'll say, oh, EU regulations, they're so bad, but they won't be able to tell you one of those regulations, or if they can name a regulation, they will not be able to tell you why it was so bad. Again, it's the mythical unicorn expert of being able to tell you what a unicorn looks like, but not being able to actually show you one in real life. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you to all those people who do support the channel that way. And of course, thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll see you all next time.